will do is go through some of the questions that have come up that people have emailed me, and we will go from there. I guess first off, too, just asking how everyone's summer's going. I know for us, um, but okay, so somebody's working. Yeah, if anything pops up for you while you're working, and just fire it in the chat. If there's a question that you want me to answer on here, I can absolutely do that. Yeah, so does that mean you still have school if you're still working? I know for us, it ended on Friday. I homeschool, but all my, we've had a house full of friends. We just always, our house is the house where all the kids come to. So we usually have a house full of friends. My kids were just today that they were like, we need a down day. So we have a quiet day for everybody today, but normally it's full of kids, all the neurodiverse fun kids, which is so fascinating. I love all of these kids, and seeing how they all interact with each other and help one another out is super cool when they each struggle with, different things that are going on and how they really mesh together. It's pretty cool, seeing all of that. All right. So no questions from anybody. So I'm going to go through the questions. So the one question that I have today is it normal for my child to cry or yell this much over everyday stuff? I've actually have had this question pop up a couple of times. So it's one of these things where we may have a child that tears up for most things, and or gets really anxiety or just like yells over absolutely everything. The thing is those are always signs that something is happening with your child. So we've just been trained to be like, people shouldn't do that. As adults, we shouldn't have outbursts. As adults, we shouldn't get upset. And all of these emotions are valid. All of these emotions, when they're happening in our body, are absolutely valid. It's a sign. And if we take that step back from what we've been taught, in that, well, you shouldn't be crying so much, you shouldn't be worried, you should just go to school easily, or you should just go to day camp easily, you should just is that whenever you're saying you should just in front of it because of how societal norms are, quite often we have to stop and take a step back and go, wait a minute. If they're having these emotions, if they're having these big outbursts, there's something going on under the surface with this person, with this child. And this is actually just with everybody. Like, when I think for me as well, the more that I have dove into parts work, and I'm trained as a trauma-informed therapist, not therapist, I'm a trauma-informed coach with parts therapy. And the more that I realize that anytime a part is kicking in somebody, that is anything other than self. So what self is when you are calm, when you are curious, when you are kind, when you are, empathetic and all of this, that is when you are in self. Whenever anything else is coming in, tears, outbursts, anger, fear, any of these other emotions that are kicking up, they're all valid. They're parts of you that are protecting you in some way or another. So whenever I'm even out, and let's say I'm in a store and somebody's like yelling at somebody for something very simple, I know that that is their body telling them that there is some sort of a threat. So if we start looking at this and thinking, when my child is tearing up, or when my child has anxiety, or my child is hitting and yelling, then, they are feeling triggered. They're feeling triggered in some way. They're feeling a threat in their body in some sort of a way. And it's just how they show it is different. Some kids even just completely shut down, and they're showing that there is something going on in them. And in years past, I know where I grew up, my generation, it was where we had to learn to shut it down. We shut down those tears. We put up these walls. We, pushed in that anger, right? And we were never taught actually how to deal with what was truly happening in that moment. So is it normal for a child to yell or cry this much over everyday stuff? I don't know what the word normal is. I know for all the kids that I work with that it happens more often than it happens to a lot of other kids. And it's their body and it's their sign saying that there's something going on, that there's something there. So it's really important to start really looking at it through that other lens. So, which can dive us down a big rabbit hole of what you would do, which some of these other questions that people have asked can help with that as well. So, and if either of you that are listening, if you have anything, like unmute yourself if you want to talk or ask it in the chat. If any questions pop up from anything that I'm saying, if you want me to expand on anything or whatever, just ask and we can do that. I will never mention your name, so we can go. Okay, there is something here. ADHD diagnosis. Yeah. Okay. So ADHD diagnosis and meds. And this is the fascinating thing. The meds work amazing for some people and they are horrible for others. There's not ever a one size fits all solution. So I'm so grateful that the individual has said that they've had 25 plus years of having this really foggy mind and like a lot going on. And so once they got an ADHD diagnosis as an adult and they went on the meds, it's changed their life. And this is the thing is we don't know what's going to work until you try as well. There are other pieces to that that could be as well. And I'm going to use actually depressants as an example, because I think it's easier to almost understand sometimes, is where when I'm working with like responders, first responders and stuff, or people that are really, really deep into burnout, like so deep, struggling to do things, struggling to make decisions, struggling to do any of the tools that I'm teaching them. If I see that they're really, really struggling and we've tried the nutritional support, we've tried certain supplements that actually feed their stress system and help to give it support, and they're not getting any relief from that, then what I do find is clients that then do go on the anti-anxiety or the antidepressants is phenomenal for them. The thing is that what we find is that it gets them to a point where it gives their system that relief. It gives that system relief in order for us then to start teaching them the tools to start working, to start getting stress off of their plate, to start training their nervous system to be able to calm down and do all these things. When they were in such a deep state, their nervous system could not handle anymore. It could not, the tools were not effective enough, right? The tools could not, they were not strong enough to do what they needed. So once they got the support from their antidepressants, we would find that then the tools that I was implementing, they were starting to be able to implement, and they were starting to strengthen their nervous system and strengthen their resting nervous system. And so I'm never from this thing of there's only ever one solution for anything. And that goes with everything. It goes with a medication, a prescription, with the tools that I teach, with any of these things. There are all pieces of the puzzle that need to go together. Like a big part of this that I actually didn't even realize, a big part of this piece with working with these kids is actually helping the parents learn how to work their nervous system, get calm themselves, and be able to work with that. Because oh my gosh, when you have kids like this too, the burnout that happens, the exhaustion of dealing with their moods and regulations and stuff all of the time, it's so hard. Yeah. So what I do always say is there's tons of pieces to the puzzle that I would never stop anybody from trying the meds, never from an ADHD med or anything else that's suggested. I would just say, see how it works for your child. And don't think that it's ever going to be the only solution, that there's only one solution. That might actually allow you the bandwidth for you to go back to other things that you've tried that you couldn't implement. And the amount of guys that we got back off of medical leave, back onto active duty during the pandemic, when like fire stations were going out. So like they'd have one whole fire station with COVID that the neighboring fire station had to cover 2 fire stations of work and double the workloads. They were working 5 24-hour shifts straight, where like there was night calls, day calls, like calls 24/7. And we were able to get them during that time back on to medical, back onto active duty if they had been on medical leave. So the thing though is quite often they do need some pharmaceutical support in order to do that. Some of them, we would give them the supplements and like, oh my God, this feels so good. And other ones would be like, I don't feel anything. This hasn't done anything. So it really depends on where somebody is, which I think you just wrote about as well. Yeah, having ADHD, huge emotions with kids. Yeah, you get so frustrated with their behaviors in public. It's embarrassing. It is, it's also too, we as parents put pressures on ourselves that like, oh, people are going to judge us. People are thinking about these things of us. And when you can start letting go of all of that and go, no, my job right now is to be there with my child, which I have a podcast episode coming up with Amy Dooley, who, oh my gosh, she's just a brilliant speaker. She's a former teacher who now works with parents to help them, you know, with that calm and being okay with their kids being in meltdowns, and actually like helping them so that when the parent can just sit with that child when they're having those meltdowns, their meltdowns are less. But when we are worrying as a parent about the people judging us, what people are going to be saying, what's happening around us, oh my God, like they're going to think I'm a bad parent, all of these things that we have, that we all go through as parents, we just sit there and go, no, you know what? My child's, they're just having their emotion. I'm just going to sit here and wait for them. And it is amazing how that passes when you're not actively doing things, like actually being in silence and not saying anything and not trying to fix things is harder than trying to fix things, at least for me. And the thing though, is that's what our kids need, is just that calm from us. And it is exhausting. It is draining until you start really learning how to do all of these skills. So a big piece of helping our kids is helping ourselves as well, because we have not been brought up with this. We've been brought to be like, don't let the neighbors see you, or the neighbors need to like, I don't know, this is maybe just my generation too, but it's like, you know, like people are always worrying about what their neighbors are thinking of them as parents and how they are, and what they're doing, and if their yard's clean enough, or if this is happening, or if their house is clean before kids come over. I'm like, I have kids. I have a house full of kids all summer. I like a neat and tidy house, but I'd rather a house that everybody loves to come in and have fun. And I'm not worried anymore about people judging if, like, you know, there's stuff on the couch, their Pokemon's out, whatever, right? So yeah, grew up in an era of kids should be seen and not heard. That's it, right? And kids should have a voice. It shouldn't just be do as you're told. Kids should have a voice. Kids, and this is a lot of issues that we're finding as parents as well, or as adults, is that we don't feel we have voices now. We don't feel like we can say, hey, I don't really like that. Or, hey, that's not for me, right? And because we've been told as kids. So when we start getting these kids that it's okay to say when they don't like something, or something is too loud or too much for them, and they'd rather not do it, and us being like, okay, you know, I get that, you know, I really want to do it. So sometimes we can compromise, or sometimes I'm like, well, how about I get you to go to, you know, so-and-so's house where it's quieter so that I can go to this thing, like, so that everybody can still be within their comfort zones, and that's okay. As best as you can. And then they know on the times that you can't, you're always doing the best that you can, and you're still learning to work together and do things as well, right? Yeah, never be a squeaky wheel. Oh, you've got great quotes. Yeah, this is it. Like, never be that squeaky wheel. Never be that somebody like, don't make noise. Like, I have, I know somebody that has taught their kid when they're younger. It's like, who's the boss? When you go over to somebody's house, like, oh, the parent is the boss. Yes. Right. And that I was always like, that's an interesting thing to say, but it's how we're brought up, right? It just seems absolutely normal. Whereas when I'm here, like, I don't know, like I teach the kids are always eating here, they're making messes. And I'm like, I teach them how to clean up after themselves. So by the end of the summer, they know how to do all those things in my house, and they're able to do all of this, but they have they get to go in the fridge and figure out what they want to eat and what they're doing. And I just like, which is maybe why they like to come to our house. But I don't, I there's certain rules of how they need to behave and respect one another, but within those rules, they're allowed to have feelings and emotions. If one of the kids doesn't feel like hanging out, they can go up to one of my kids' rooms and read, or go have some quiet time if they want. If they're old enough too, that if they want to go for a walk around the block by themselves to have their own space and quiet to down regulate, that's fine. They don't all have to be doing the same thing together. I have a no phones rule when they're here. If they're here, they hang out with each other. But and it is, and there's some parents that don't get that, and there's some parents that totally support it, and I'm good with either, right? Whatever the parents, we're all different in how we parent, and we have to become okay with that, because I know that I grew up with, there's just one way of doing things, and I found that too when I got into my relationship with my husband, is when you first start living together, I'm like, well, I always thought there was one way to do everything. And I learned, oh no, like he does things totally different, right? And so that's where I'm really been working hard on teaching my kids as to, how do you want to do this? How do you want to do the dishes, right? How do you want to do your laundry? How does it work for you? Like, do you want to be listening to watching TV or listening to an audiobook when you're folding the laundry? Like, what do you want to do? How does it work for you? Starting it in the morning, what day of the week do you want to do it? Like, we figure out all of these things with the kids in order to give them a voice and let them do things different. And if they do discover a different way to do something, I'm like, that sounds great. Let's try it and let's see if it works just as well or better than the way we've been doing it. So it's really about reconditioning from how we have been grown up to as parents. Just reading what you said as well. After years of learning more about ADHD and anxiety, I found that it was out of their control. Yeah, it's not in our kids' control. They didn't have the skills to regulate themselves. It's totally a fight or flight. Yeah, this is completely the thing, is understanding that this is all signs of these kids needing help, which is where one reason why I did pull my son from school is because he's in a classroom with 28, 30 kids. And there's other kids that are also dysregulated. They're shutting down, they're having anxiety, they're tearing up, they're yelling, they're pushing, their, energy just can't focus on anything. Then I'm like, how can a teacher be able to give all of these kids what they need in order to give their nervous system what they want? Which is where I know we've talked about in last few episodes, was where we have spoken about the breathing. So doing the breath work with the kids every single day will start helping all of their nervous systems, so that you'll start seeing that difference in the regulation as well. All right. Any other questions? If any of you wants to unmute, I have more questions from others. Okay. Okay, I don't see any of you unmuting. So, and there's no questions in the chat. So we'll go to the next one. Should I talk about the meltdown later? If so, how do I bring it up? This is really good, because what does later mean? And what does the conversation consist of, right? It is going to be so different for each kid. And this is kind of a loaded question. So let's first talk about when to even consider talking about them, not even what to talk about. So when you go through a stressed state, you get that high and then you go down below baseline. This was from the podcast episode with Amanda Preston, I believe, on autism. So you go up into that heightened state and you have your baseline, and you actually go below baseline. And when you're below baseline, you seem calm. You seem like you're calm, you're good. And that is often when parents start talking, but that's not when they're ready. We need to still get them up. So if they seem calm, but they're quiet and not their usual self, like, if they're not able to be like a dolphin, where they are able to really have conversations, joke around, laugh, play freely, then their nervous system probably isn't in a space yet where they are okay to talk. So if they're in that shutdown phase does not necessarily mean they're ready to talk. And we make that mistake all the time as parents. We meaning me, I know this. And there's times we're like, oh, he's in dolphin, we're good, we can chat now. And then they instantly go whoop, and I'm like, oh, he wasn't there yet. Okay. Sometimes too, I need to really feed him. I need to get hydration in him. He loves making his own canned lemonade, the Minute Maid lemonade, the frozen stuff. And that will sometimes get him to drink more. I'm not into all the sugars and stuff, but sometimes the hydration is what he needs. And something that's comforting is what he needs to start bringing his nervous system back out. It could be us doing something totally different. Right now in the summer, I find my son is so much better because we swim multiple times a week. And when he is in the water and he is running around and he diving off the diving board, doing his flips, diving into the deep end, he is getting out so much of his energy and really getting his nervous system what it needs, that he is so much calmer outside of that. That if he was having a really struggling morning, I would try to get to the pool earlier. I would even cut my work day down a little bit earlier if I could, in order to get into the pool, knowing that when I came back, I could get work done because he would be calmer. And that is when I could speak to him. So the thing though now is about speaking to them. If you have a child who perfectionism, fear of making a mistake is a struggle. Also, you have kids that are already beating themselves up. There are kids, most of them, many of them already feel bad for, crying and getting upset about something or getting mad or yelling or hitting. They're embarrassed when they're around their friends that that's happening too. That there's times to talk about it and times that you actually don't need to. So I'll give an example. Even yesterday, we were playing baseball and one of the friends, so one kid my kid did not know the rules he doesn't know all the rules of baseball. We just like go hit balls, throw balls, play. He's not this is perfectionism, fear of making mistakes, not liking to be coached as much, doesn't ever really want to just sit and learn the rules of something. This is also kids that are sometimes ahead. They catch on to things so fast that when it gets to the point where they should start learning rules and of a game or all of that, that to them feels like they're not good enough. They don't know enough, that they don't know these rules right away. And we're working on that. And he's coming a long way. He's actually doing a chess program right now that is teaching him strategies. And he's being coached by like one of his favorite chess guys on YouTube. And it's phenomenal because he's doing it and he loves rock climbing. So I'm getting him into a rock climbing program that's online, that he gets them to start teaching him and coaching him things that he doesn't know. So he's starting to get in that mind frame of, through his preferred stuff, of being okay learning the rules of something that he didn't know or something that he's already passionate about, and is now realizing that there's so much more to learn that he just didn't know and couldn't pick up on his own. So in that, there was a rule in batting that he didn't know, where if he just even did a slight, if his body moved a certain way, it's still a strike. It counts as like he swung even though he didn't swing. And he got really upset. But that being said, his really upset now was that he put the bat down, he threw a glove. He threw a glove across the field and he went over to the playground and sat there and climbed stuff and did the monkey bars for a little bit and was on his own. And then eventually came back and stood by the other kids. And then eventually he started laughing and joking and went up and batted again, and all was good. So in a situation like that, I am actually on the fence on if I should say it or not say anything to him, because he actually used his skills. He didn't yell, he didn't hit at anybody. He took his time to go and calibrate himself, and then he came back when he was ready. So it's more of what I would actually say in that moment is I would do my drive-by at night when I put him to bed, when the lights are out, whatever. As I'm leaving the room, I can say, I'm so proud of you today for when you got upset, you stepped away, took time you needed, and then came back and played. And that's it. Walk out of the room, shut the door, don't say anything else. So I would probably have that conversation. I wouldn't go in depth too much into the baseball and the rules, because I'm already covering it in something else. And he's starting to get those pieces elsewhere. And I know that those are skills I'm working somewhere else that I didn't necessarily need to bring it up again. So it's really, it's this fine balance between how much do you bring up. There's this rule in, I don't know, in business and coaching businesses and stuff too, that you give 3 positive things before you give a correction. This is in coaching any kids anywhere doing things. If you are giving more corrections than you are positives, their body's going to shut down, their brain's going to shut down, and they're never going to be open to wanting to hear or see what you have to say. So there needs to be those positives. So that's where I would use that one as a positive, of praise. Hey, that was good. Plus doing stuff in the day, whatever it was, just having a good time, thanking him for things. Um, he helps out quite a bit. Um, He'll help me in the kitchen. He's doing his laundry today. Um, so yeah, just giving him enough praise before you sit and go, hey, why don't we talk about what happened the other day? And when I'm doing that as well, I always point out the skills that he has been developing and how he used those skills if he did those skills after he hit. And I'm like, okay, so you used all these skills. This was amazing. You did all of these things great. And I noticed though that you did hit. What if we worked on some things that you could do before you hit? Like, how did that feel in your body before you hit somebody? What were you feeling first? What if we were able to walk away when you started feeling that feeling instead of staying there and hitting and then walking away? What if we took that one hitting part out of the way? And when you start feeling those feelings in your body, that's when you took that time to step away. And I would kind of verbalize it that way instead of making them feel bad about what they did, kind of use it in a way that starts empowering them to do things. Okay. Any other questions? I have some more. We have more time on this call that I can go over if anybody else has that they would like to ask. You can unmute yourself. You can ask in the chat. No. Okay. So the next one is, how do I help my child handle transitions or changes without falling apart? Okay, so this is the thing, is that sometimes we almost try to help too much and kids don't have the skills yet. So it's only when they're age 21 to 23 that that part of their brain, the executive functioning part of their brain, is fully grown. And that is the part of their brain that helps them to analyze, to plan, to generate, to transition, to where their attention is going, to how they're focusing on things, all of this stuff, to be able to actually stop what they're doing and move into something else. That's the age 21 to 23. So we need to really keep that into perspective, that this is a skill that they do need to develop over time. This goes back to what I was saying earlier at the start, that there are so many expectations with these kids that they should just already know or already do, or behaviors they should do. They should, stop crying, stop hitting. They should just do certain things that their brain may not even have the developmental capacities for yet. And we all develop at different stages and ages. Some of these kids might develop so much academically, but that other side that we were just speaking of for changes and transitions and all of that is slower to develop in those kids. We also get kids where they actually need to be helped and taught how to do some of those skills, because they will not ever be able to just pick them up by seeing other people do them. And these are things that society has misled us in believing, right? That all kids should just pick up these skills without ever being taught. Like, we sit there and we teach kids to ride bikes. We sit there and we teach them math, right? We teach them how to count. We teach them letters. When we're all speaking all the time, we sit there and we work on grammar with them, even if they've been brought up with hearing grammar all the time or seeing how grammar and punctuation is in a book. We still teach them grammar and punctuation on that academic side. But for some reason, when we go to that other side of the brain, where they should learn how to do transitions, they should learn how to, handle change, or stop doing the work that they're doing and refocus on something, is like, all of these things are skills that we need to be taught. And yes, some kids can observe some of these skills and pick them up. Some kids cannot. Just like math, some kids very quickly pick up math, very quickly pick up grammar, very quickly pick up how to ride a bike. Whereas other kids take time and need more help and need more guidance with it. And that is the same thing with change and transitions. So we have a comment in here. Okay. Yeah, so this is where this comment in the group just came up. It happens all the time. So ADHD, ODD grandson and ADHD mom lives with you. Always had emotional regulation, aggressive issues. Yeah. So you've taught him to walk away to calm down. But it's turning into getting mad was a way. Hold on. It was a way to get him to avoid whatever he was being told to do at school and at home. And now at home, the other parents are insisting that he stay and listen instead of walking away to calm down. Yeah. And this is the thing, is that the parenting style that we have been brought up with is that you should stop right away. You should be able to stop right away, and you should be able to listen, and you should be able to just instantly, you know, be able to work. But what we don't understand, what they're struggling to understand, of which they have not been taught, is about the stress animals. So we have the dolphin, which is when they're ready to listen and talk and work through things. But we have the shark, which is the one that attacks, gets angry. We have the clownfish from Finding Nemo, Nemo's dad, who is like worried, always worried about leaving the anemone, worried about what's going to happen, needing to control and fix everything. And then we have the turtle that shuts down. When you're in any of these animals, you're not in the brain that can think, can process, can take in information. You're in an animal that is feeling like there's a threat. And so the old style of parenting is the style of parenting where we have been told that we need to stop and listen right now to what you did wrong and act on it and learn how to do it. And they're missing that big important step of letting them go and regulate, or you even helping regulate with them is even better. And the hardest thing about this is when you have different family members, when you have, one spouse wants to do this and the other spouse doesn't, it's really, really hard for them to understand and get that. If any of them are ever open to podcasts, what I would suggest is Robin Gobble's podcast. What is her podcast? It's with Big Baffling Behaviors, I think. Gobble. It's Robbyn and Gobble. No, Robyn and then Gobbel. So her last name has two. Her podcast and her book is phenomenal. The book, I would suggest that they only read chapter 5 and 6, because that is what will help the most. Where is her? She doesn't even have her podcast. Hold on. Oh, podcast up there. She's got a lot of tabs. Yeah, it's called the Baffling Behaviors Show with Robin Gobble. So that is an amazing podcast. If they're open to it, and this is the thing, is if somebody's not open to it, it's hard. Like, that is where, honestly, if somebody's not open to it, this is where I would get out Chris Voss's work. So Chris Voss is a former hostage FBI negotiator. And in a hostage negotiation, you need I'm going to say criminals, I don't know what their word is. You need them to think that they are in control. Meanwhile, it's the hostage negotiator that is actually controlling the situation, and you cannot give an ounce on anything. You can't let them like kill a hostage, right? But keep 9. You want everybody to come out safely. So he has developed through years of that, and then years of actually helping at Harvard and working with businesses now, is teaching this way of conversations in order to be able to really work through tough conversations and to be able to help somebody see your side of things when they're really not on board to see that side of things. So it's a really, really good book. The audiobook is amazing because his voice is such a great voice in narrating it and narrating his stories. So that's Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And and I would use that to try to get them to listen to Robin Gobble's podcast, or read at least or listen to at least chapter 5 and 6 of her audiobook. So yeah. So I just read your next comment, so I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, so I would try those things first. Okay, your next question is a really, really good question. How do we get them to stop using getting mad and walking away as an avoidance strategy? Is it really? Well, okay, it probably is an avoidance strategy, but why is he avoiding, right? This is where we have to take the step back to really think, why is he avoiding doing what you're asking him to do? When we go back to what I was speaking of earlier, to the sides of the brain, we have this academic side that, we're teaching math, reading, writing, how to ride a bike, how to do all those things, right? The other side of the brain is the one that is in charge of taking in information. So if you're asking him to go and do something, like, let's give an example of it being something that you have shown him 50 times. That, like, so let's say they're like grade 4, 5, 6, and they're packing a bag to go to school every day, and they do not get their bag packed every day. I would actually start looking at what their working memory is like. Can they take the words that you're asking them to do and hold on to those words long enough to remember what you asked them to do, to go and do it? That's the verbal working memory. Nonverbal working memory is, can they take the information that you're using and go back into that part in their mind where they have the visual of what goes in their bag every single day? Can they remember what goes into that bag every single day visually? If they can't, then that is the nonverbal working memory. And do they have the attention to focus on what you're asking them to do? So when somebody is struggling to follow steps that you're asking them to do, or to do something that you've asked them to repeatedly do that they don't know how to do, it's possibly that their brain can't either remember how to do it, or they don't remember what you're asking them to do. And then what kids will do quite often is they will get angry and storm off and cause a scene to mask that they don't remember what you said, to mask that they don't know how to do what you've asked them to do. Especially when you say, why can't you do this? I've shown you 5, 10, 15, 50 times. Why can't you do it? So this is where we have to stop and look at a learning ladder as well, on where are they actually on the learning ladder for learning it. So this is where I was saying too, like, I love having kids at my house. And it's fascinating when I'm teaching them all to clear the table, clean up their mess, and put everything into the dishwasher, and everything's cleaned up. And if we have to stop and think about all of those steps. So they're eating at the table. They've also made all their lunch, so everything's all over. If I ask them so they have to take their plate and bowl, bring it into the kitchen, figure out what bucket the compost goes into, clean off their plate or their bowl, and know exactly where in the dishwasher it goes, so that it's organized in a spatial sort of way. That already is a hard task for a kid that spatially struggles to remember where anything goes. They may not remember where, like, we have 2 buckets, we have a garbage and a compost. Just going to that every single day, if they don't have the nonverbal working memory to remember that, they're never going to remember what bucket it goes in. They're not even going to remember the steps of when they bring their plate to the kitchen of what to do. And it sounds so simple because we're like, oh, you just do this, this, and this, put it in, boom. Some kids will get it like that. And some kids, if that part of their memory isn't, they won't get it. And then they know that they can't remember it, so they get angry and they get pissed and they walk away and they won't do it. Or they know that they can't even remember how to do it and they'll get pissed and walk away. So sometimes we're getting mad at them when in fact, they're actually feeling ashamed. They're actually feeling upset. They're actually feeling like I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, telling themselves these stories. But it's easier to show you that I'm just angry and mad and I'm being defiant and I'm this tough person and I'm not going to do it than to say to you, I can't. Right. And then if we even think about the next steps of that, they still have to bring their placemat, clean their placemat. Like the number of kids that come to my house and don't ever think about that placemat, like that's an extra step. And I don't get them to do it right away. The first part I always do is put their bowl on the counter and bring me their placemat. And then I get them to eventually scrape out their bowls and give it to me, and I put it and I rinse it and put it in the dishwasher. Then I get them to rinse it. Then I get them to do all 3 steps, and I put it in the dishwasher. And then eventually I get them to do all 4 steps. And that takes time for some of these kids to do. And some of these kids I'm going to say that are at my house are smart, like crazy smart in their studies. They can't always do the work the way the teacher's asking them to do or get it out on paper, but you get it in their heads. Or like with Pokemon, the amount of strategy that these kids can do with these cards, the way they can know all these cards and know as all, like the amount of information that is in their heads in the things that excite them and that they know of and really do, like they're smart kids, but they struggle with some of these small little day-to-day things. And then I get to where they have to start cleaning up the stuff that they use to make their lunch with. And that takes time. So this takes me weeks and weeks and weeks. And sometimes with certain kids, it's over the summer, but we've had kids coming to our house for years that a lot of them know it. So when another one comes in, in my mind, I can't think of where these other kids are at because it's taken me years to get these kids to do these things in my house. And that I have to go step by step with the new kid that's coming over. So when we are looking at a kid that is avoiding, I really would highly encourage anybody to stop, take that step back and go, why are they avoiding this? Why are they avoiding it? Right? No kid really ever wants to be bad. It could be too that they have traumas. It could be that, it might not be that part of the brain. It might be that they're really angry about something else that has been happening, and that's their way of being pissed at, the parents or whatever, right? There can be so many different things. Like that's where I would start diving into the traumas and things. But what I would always do first, the first keys is for the parent to remain calm, and is for the parent to stay connected, which is so hard to do and so hard to learn because that's not how we were brought up, is to do that first and then start looking under the hood of why are they avoiding this? What happens if that parent is calm and collected and does it with them? Can that child even do it with them, or do they need that parent to constantly tell them the next step and show them the next step? Like, do they need that? So there's so many things that we think, well, they've seen us do this 50 million times, they should be able to do it. They should know. That part of that brain is the age of 21 to 23 what forms. And in quite a few kids, especially the kids that you see really can get on to something. It might be they're really into history, or like one of the kids that comes to our house is really into F1 cars. And the other day too, like Canada Day here, we had the fighter jets going, and he knew exactly what fighter jet it was. He knew about the engines. He knew about everything. I'm like, this kid's friggin' smart, but he really struggles in school. His ADHD struggles in school to pay attention and get anything done and follow steps. And for him, a lot of it's attention, but I'm seeing things too. It is also his working memory for sure. So as he's at our house, I've been working with him, and it's hilarious because his parents are awesome, but his parents are like, when you're tired of him, send him home. I'm like, he's fine. I'm like, as soon as his attention is going, I send them on the trampoline, or they go to the park to throw things or throw balls, or I get him to get up and move when he's off. And I'm also have been working on his working memory with things at a stage that's working for him. And he's doing really well. I also don't feed him any sugar in my house. I find with him, as soon as he gets sugar, whew, his focus is like completely off the charts left field, and he can't focus to do anything that he has no troubles doing with sugar in him. So it is different for different kids, but yeah, it's really, really important to start looking under the hood as to why. Why are they avoiding? And really diving into that, that part of the executive functioning is the one that really struggles. Um, okay. So yeah, you're saying it's more difficult past like reading, cleaning up, sometimes not just doing things his way. Yeah. Okay. So not doing things his way is black and white thinking. And that is a fascinating one because what happens is in their brain, they have this image of this is the way this should be done. And anything outside of that, they don't have a file or a bucket in their brain for that. So that is flexible thinking. And that is where when it's not doing things his way, that's where you can stop and talk about, tell me about the way you want it. Like have him feel listened to. Tell me how how do you feel this should be done? Okay. So I would do this like a little bit different. Can I show you how I do it? And then you can still decide to do it your way and see if your way will get it done as well. That's the thing too, sometimes with parents is we're inflexible and we think something has to be done a certain way. And oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you the way that one of my kids does things. I'm like, how is that even going to work? He usually figures it out. Sometimes it is the hardest way to do it and it is the longest way to do it. And it is not easy, but he gets it done. And so in my mind, if he's doing something, but getting it done in his way, that's fine. And what I might do is on another day, as things we've talked about earlier, when he is totally calm, regulated, and all that stuff, sometimes it's the drive-by thing in bed of being like, I saw you work so hard today to get those dishes done, or so hard to do whatever it is you were asking them to do. You did such a great job. You kept with it, you kept working at it, and you really did it. Like, I'm super proud of you. There might be an easier way to do that. If you would like, I can show you tomorrow. I'll ask you tomorrow if you want me to show you. That's it. And leave it at that and let them think because they don't have a file in their brain for that. They don't have their file in their brain that there's another way to do it. And they need to slowly process that there's another way to do it. And the next day you can say to them when it's time to do that thing again, would you like me to show you like the other way I told you that would take less time and not be as hard? And if they say, no, I'm fine doing it my way, say, okay, that's fine. And it's just a repeat of that. It might take you 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 times of just saying like, there's another way to do this. If you want to learn, let me know. And letting them be okay to say, no, I want to do this my way, the hard way. And eventually they will come along. It takes a long time to rewire that brain of their like inflexible thinking. When we did our psychoed eval with my one son, and she's like, he's got black and white thinking, all that. She told us that's just how it's always going to be. And I was like, no, that's not. Like, he can't live this life where everything has to be exact all of the time. And because it stresses him out too. Like, it's just not healthy for him that if I say, put your plates away and he's like, it's a bowl, that stresses his nervous system out. Like it does. If you can see his whole body change when I say the wrong word. So it's one of these things where we do need to help them along, but there's ways to do it. There's also other conversations to have them too of like, this is so cool that you want to do such a good job on this and make it perfect. What would happen if you only did 80% perfect on this? What would happen? And you start playing the what would happen game sometimes too. You also encourage them sometimes to leave mistakes. If it's a kid, so this is for teachers and stuff too. If you have a kid that is so focused on the perfectionism and fear of making mistakes, It's actually rewarding them for making mistakes, leaving a mistake. And you can say, I'll give you an extra point if you actually don't fix that, you know? And they start learning that it's okay to make a mistake, right? It's okay to do that because in their bucket, they have this bucket that any mistake is bad. So, with that black and white, inflexible thinking has to be done this way. We need to help them get those other files, and it takes a long time. My son, we've been working on this for years. He's come a long way, a long way. I can't believe how far he's come. Yet, if somebody was to come and probably observe him and see in his day how often he does struggle with some of the words that I make a mistake on or certain things that I'm doing that are just off, they'd be like, oh, whoa, he still struggles with perfectionism and stuff. And I'd be like, whoa, he's come really far, really far. So I just want you to know, like, it takes time. It really does take time in really helping these kids because they have such wired neural pathways of one way to do things, fixed response in doing things. Has to be this way. I'm a bad person if I make a mistake. All of these things. So there's so many different strategies. Like I know with me being a trauma informed coach, I'll use some of those strategies with them. I'll use other what's it called? I'll use other strategies with them on like the mindset and helping them learn that. It's really does take time. And one thing as well that I do in the house a lot is when I make mistakes, which I do all the time, I'll be like, oh man, I just made a mistake. And I'm like, okay, well, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I feel really embarrassed that I just did this. But I did it. I can't change it. How can I fix it right now? And sometimes I'll even have my kids help me brainstorm how to fix what I did. And it's gotten to the point where like they're not getting really upset when they make mistakes now. I mean, if they spill like if the one spills something, now he'll actually run and help me get a cloth and clean it up. Um, and then he won't do whatever he was doing, flailing his body or flinging something that whatever knocked whatever was off the table. Um, he realizes that he shouldn't have done that and he doesn't do that behavior anymore. But I also, we know that the water spilt, whatever spilt, and we just work together to clean it up. And he's good with that now. So like we've come a long way, but it takes time. It really does. And as parents, we need to model it. We need to model when we're making mistakes. We need to model that it's okay. Like, oh, I missed my turn when we were driving. Like I was too focused on the audiobook or, I was thinking I was going somewhere else or I'm used to going this place. So I just totally make a mistake, I need to either turn around or I need to, let's just fix this. It's going to take an extra minute, but whatever. Yeah. At least we'll be safe, instead of me stressing about it. And I'll literally verbally say those things to them out loud. They need to see that other people do make mistakes and it's okay to make mistakes. So we need to model that for them. And so reading too, you're talking about reading. Reading can be attention, reading can be verbal working memory, nonverbal working memory. I would definitely dive into that. The odds are he's probably masking a struggle if it's something that for reading. I'd be very curious too if when he was younger, if he was okay with little like one sentence chapter books or things like that. And when it got to be a little bit older, where it became paragraphs or where it became little chapter books, if that's when he struggled. If so, totally executive functioning and not a reading struggle. And he's probably masking it and embarrassed about it. And his nervous system feels like it's a threat anytime he's being asked to do it. And that's why he explodes and avoids it, is because he can't, not because he doesn't want to. Okay. Hopefully that helps. If you want to unmute yourself and ask anything too, you're more than welcome to, or you can ask anything more in the chat. Okay. So I did have some more written questions, but priority is always the people in the group. So we are at the end of our time for today. Yeah, working on learning to read at 7. So That's the thing, is if he's struggling with phonetic sounds, it's verbal working memory. If he's struggling with remembering what letters look like, words visually, stuff like that, or especially meanings of words. If they're really struggling with, why can't I even think of a word with two meanings right now? Oh my God, this is so silly. Wave and wave, right? If they're really struggling with that, or if they're struggling with that would be nonverbal working memory. When they don't have the visual in their brain for the two things that sound the same. If it's different sounds, that would be verbal working memory. If it's the images in the brain, that would be nonverbal working memory. So from a lot of the things that you're saying here, it sounds like executive functioning. My podcast, do you listen to my podcast, the Kids with Big Emotions podcast? Episodes 85 up to 92. Any of them that say, any of those that say EF series is the executive functioning series, and there's one specific on verbal and nonverbal working memory, I would go to that one. It's in the 80s of my podcast. I'm in the hundreds now, so you're going to have to scroll back. But yeah, 85 to 92, go into the executive functioning series of my podcast on kids with big emotions, and specifically the verbal and nonverbal working memory, though you may want to listen to the perception and attention that comes before it. And then we've got inhibition. And then I also have one on cognitive flexibility and initiation. So struggling to start things, and black and white thinking, the cognitive flexibility, all the things that you said here. There's podcast episodes on all of those. If you go to YouTube, I think I have it visually where I actually walked it all through with a slide deck on my YouTube channel. I'm not sure if we added the video recordings of them, but if you go to YouTube to Kids with Big Emotions and check those out. If not, let me know and I can plop them in. We just haven't done that yet. There's so many things to be doing in the back end. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, because at 7, if he's struggling with reading, verbal, nonverbal working memory, hands down, verbal, nonverbal working memory, maybe some attention stuff as well. But verbal, nonverbal working memory. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. This has been good. I will see you next week. Any questions that you do have, email me questions and I will always go through them. But priority is always to the people that are live on the call. My pleasure. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you later.